In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. Well, it's not very good now, is it? Why are things working so badly? Is it possibly because they've become too big and too impersonal? This parish of ours is 13,000 people, a fair-sized town. And yet we control none of our local services, none at all. It looks to me as though our top people have forgotten that democracy does not mean government for the people or government of the people. It means emphatically government by the people.
Order! Order!
Things don't seem to change much except for the worse. The whole work seems to be run by big people sitting at big desks or riding about in big cars, and they don't seem to take much notice of us or what it is we may want. It is clear that government, industry, and politics are creating problems. They have become so big that they are out of control. We have to learn very quickly that giantism has become public enemy number one. That must be the core concern of radical politics in the next century. There was a time when things were local and more personal. A town, a village, even a parish would be running its own affairs. The local church mattered more. There would be local festivals. Young people would be dancing round maypoles instead of running around killing themselves in stolen cars or setting fire to pubs and shops. Our Lord Jesus Christ said, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord, and thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind and with all thy strength. This is the first commandment, and the second is like, namely this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. There is none other commandment greater than these."
Well, the church is a great deal of my life, as you know, singing in the choir and everything like that, and harvest festivals, manning stalls.
You live in a very large block of flats, don't you?
Yes, I do.
How many of the people in that block can you really claim you know?
I can only say I know about 5 or 6, and they're mostly immediate neighbours. To me, I call it the barracks, actually, because 268 flats, it's almost the size of a village.
Some soup for you, John David?
Oh, I'd love some.
But it means something enormous to be able to sit down as a family unit. When you think how much loneliness there is in a city like this, where people scarcely see anybody from one week to another, except when they go to something like the church and then they have a natter over the coffee or the sherry afterwards. It's something to be able to be together as a family unit, don't you think?
Yeah.
Now here is an SOS message. will Robert Brown of Burton-on-Trent, at present on holiday in the south of England, please get in touch with the Newcastle General Infirmary, where his mother, Elsie Brown, is dangerously ill. And that's the end of the SOS message.
That announcement reminds me that when Kenneth Kaunda was staying with me in London many years ago, long before he became president of Zambia, that it shocked him more than anything about our way of life that members of a family should not know of each other's whereabouts, even in a moment of acute family crisis, and had to resort to making advertisements like that in order to find out where they were. The other thing that astonished him so much and disappointed him was the way in which we treat old people by putting them into old people's homes. This growing disregard of family ties is symptomatic of how our whole way of life is cracking up. That is what makes me a campaigner for social change. We need to bring back the caring and sharing of family and small community life. I'm going to just such a community on an island off the north coast of Northern Ireland. Not a holiday paradise, but a real working place with real working people, just like anywhere else.
There's a stranger, and he's standing by your door. Might be your best friend, might be your brother, you may never know. I'm going back.
Life on this island is no picnic. The 100 or so people here, cut off from the mainland, have had to learn to live together in tough conditions. So they largely run their own affairs and create their own pattern of life in ways we seem to have forgotten how to do.
This whole world is so cold. Don't care nothing for your soul. You share with your own one.
Now, man, first of all, won't you let me have a pair of gloves?
Yes, I will indeed.
Keep my hands warm in your cold island.
Indeed, it turns very cold.
This whole world is so cold. Don't care nothing for your soul. You share with your own one.
Good afternoon, man. How are things with you? This must be about the smallest post office I've ever been in.
Good afternoon, John.
Here it comes. You've been busy, have you?
I have indeed. Have you had a nice day?
A nice day? What else could it be on an island like this? Less than 4 miles separates us here on this island from the mainland. 4 miles separating us from a whole way of life. This lighthouse is powered by wind turbine generator. Next year, the whole island is going to be powered in the same way. It's going to be the first part of Britain to be so powered. It won't be on the national grid, and it won't be burning essential fossil fuels. We can't all live in small island communities like this, but these lucky people here can teach us a thing or two about how to live.
We live amongst one another. We live together, both religions. Any religion, it doesn't matter what religion, we can live together.
You live together as a community
yes,
with
we
good
live
relationships?
together, yes indeed. We respect one another's religion, which is very important, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's the
And what
one
about-
God. No matter what way you go, it's the one God. So
Yeah.
I have respect.
Peace and
I worked in
quiet.
Belfast for a good number of years, and during that time it was a lot of trouble in Belfast, there was a lot of noise, bombs, what have you. It was great to come to a place like Rathlin where you didn't have to worry whether your door was locked at night. You could go to bed and you could sleep and there was nothing to disturb you. The only noise you heard in Rathlin in the evening was the generators going, which provides our electricity.
Because it's an island, there's a great deal of interdependence, and while sometimes the interdependence comes out perhaps in disagreements, the other sides of those disagreements will always iron themselves out, and when help is needed, it's always there. Actual community care in terms of old people and children and sick. Everybody's children would be watched by everybody else just in case they were in danger, or you know, just sort of a community responsibility.
Right, I'd like to begin tonight's meeting. This is the first meeting of the new committee.
The Community Association Committee is elected to run local affairs and to solve local problems. It is also the chief link with the politicians and agencies on the mainland. When I was there, the high costs and the long delays of the promised new electricity supply was right at the top of its agenda.
To date, their completion date is they're talking about September, October. Now, I don't think we should be happy with that. I think we should be looking to a much earlier date.
The last term, have a letter in about June or July in the middle of the summer.
I think we do a good role in terms of people come to us and ask us, you know, they want more housing. We then liaise on with the executive and tell them.
Teresa, do you share this view that the council has been a success in terms of, let's say, democratic representation?
Yes, I do. I think it plays an important role for the people here, and they feel. I think the people here feel that they can go along to our meetings and put forward their own point of view and discuss anything they want to discuss.
How many children do you have?
We've got 2 little boys, Kieran and Carl. They just go to playgroup at the moment. They're still preschool. And
What sort of future do you see for them in terms of living on the island?
well, the future's a long way away. The island might be different then. There may be jobs that they can come back to.
Well, they're going to bring in this electricity scheme, aren't they?
Yes.
Do you think
well,
that's going to
there will be jobs there, yes, with the electricity.
make it different?
Yeah.
I think they grow up very close to the reproduction of all those things necessary to keep life going. They see when it's bad weather, they know the income's poor. They see day to day, like they're involved in functional activities like keeping your water supply going, or not getting goods when you needed them, or not having something in the house because you can't get it here on the island. And like life isn't a wage packet in a false environment, and they grew up with the adults, with all children, like it's one community. You wouldn't notice the age difference here.
On the pier, watching the ferry unload, I saw things like eggs and milk and bread being imported as though nobody here was doing these things. You know, running poultry or milking cows or making bread. Don't you think it'd be worth trying to get these things organised on the island?
Yes, ideally it would be nice for vegetables and that, for farming, changing the style of farming, producing vegetables for the shops. But you must remember there's a lot of people on the island who don't have land.
Most people do bake bread. Some bake more than others. Some don't bake bread at all. But when you've got families and when you've got 3 or 4 kids and you've got the same pressures as somebody else, you try to get them out to school.
Yeah.
You know, you buy the loaf, you know. Now, sort of like sheep and cattle and fish, the island is surrounded by fish, but fishing is difficult here. Now, most people always and still salt fish for the winter. Salted fish is still part of the diet here. You mightn't see it, you know,
Yeah.
it doesn't come in boxes of boats,
No.
but it is there.
You've probably got more here in variety than we've got in our local shopping area in
That's
London.
what I'm telling you.
Yeah.
You can't beat the island. That's what I'm telling you.
The island was totally self-sufficient until, say, the wartime. Most rural areas lost their independence then, not just Rathlin. And the place was very, very much on the down until the 70s. In a way, the place isn't nice and twee and traditional, but if it was a traditional island, and if it was still little houses the way they were, it would be a dying island.
Even a small island can have its employment problems. A special trust has been set up to refurbish the former landlord's manor house. It is hoped that this will generate new jobs, and already a sea diving centre and a laundry are in business. And is that part of the equipment that they set you up with? What is this building going to be? It was the old manor house, wasn't it?
Yes.
What's it going to be used for when you're finished with it?
Mainly accommodation of a better quality, more hotel standard.
So,
but on the ground floor there are other things. There's a Rathlin centre there, and there's museum, hopefully, library, and creche for children. You know, anyway, well, at the minute there's still a creche for keeping workers.
Who would you say was this going to benefit most, the islanders or the visitors?
Both. I would say it's 50-50. Hopefully, it'll definitely benefit the visitors. In that there'll be more facilities for them when they come to the island, and hopefully create businesses for the islanders to operate.
And what about the workers who are doing it? Are they young trainees, any of them?
Most of them are islanders, you know, and would have acquired certain skills in growing up on the island.
What does your father do?
Well, he looks after a lighthouse. He's a fisherman. He's a Coast Guard man, a fireman.
And your dad's the lighthouse keeper as well?
Well, he's only a lighthouse keeper. My uncle David works in the fire brigade and he's a Coast Guard man as well.
What does your father do?
He's a fireman.
Fireman?
A barman.
A barman?
He's a postman.
Postman?
He works in a boat.
So he must know everybody on the island?
Yeah, he does actually.
There's a changing beauty every day with the different weathers and seasons.
Well, a friend of mine wrote an article about hospitals not long ago, and he said that one of the facts they discovered is that patients recovered quickly who were able to look at a tree rather than those who looked just at a blank wall. What do you think about that?
I think he's possibly right, because in a tree, I mean, your imagination can see so much. Whereas when you look at a blank wall, you don't see a lot, do you?
You're thrust on yourself, aren't you?
Yes.
Supposing there was some sudden catastrophe or an accident on the island, how would the service on the island manage?
Well, if we had a life-threatening situation, such as a stroke or a heart attack, we have a backup of a helicopter. And also we have a very close relationship with the Coast Guard. One GP in particular used to come in on a 6-weekly basis, and in between times, if a patient's condition was giving cause for concern, the doctor would come in and assist that patient for you.
What about things like pregnancies and childbirth? Do they take place on the island, or do?
No, mostly we encourage them to go to the mainland, because there's always the danger of a difficult birth and that strip of water.
And were you born on the island?
Nearly.
Nearly? You mean you were born in the sea?
No. Well, she was almost born at home, and then she was almost born in the boat. Then she was almost born in the car. And then you were born in almost born in the stretcher, wasn't you? I was. She was born in the stretcher.
Where was the stretcher?
In the hospital in Ballycastle.
Ah. So you can't claim you were born here, but you've lived here all the time.
Yeah.
Did she tell you she was actually my daughter?
She was?
She was.
Well, you weren't the nurse at the time, presumably.
No, I wasn't. It just so happened that an aunt-in-law had died and all the family were on the mainland and the phones, unfortunately, were out of order. And I was heading across to Ballycastle with my son, who wasn't well. And on the way, I went into labour. So luckily enough, there was a speedboat in the harbour and they ferried me across to the mainland.
So technically, your daughter is what you call an in-runner.
I think she'd appreciate that somehow.
No, I'm glad she wouldn't. I mean, it's lovely to feel that people have this sense of affinity and loyalty with a particular community and that they treasure their membership of it.
Oh, yes.
Oh, my. What do you want, eh? Well...
I think it's very rewarding to teach in a school like this, on an island. They are very open children, and I think that comes from being in a small community.
Being in a small community?
Yeah, and also then being together in a small school.
Being in a small school. You know what I think? I think those words ought to be etched in stone tablets over the desk of every educational bureaucrat in creation.
Well, I would agree with you there.
And do you find you get much interference in your work from the higher authorities, as it were, in the educational world?
No, I don't get much interference at all. We get inspectors coming over just to make sure that everything's running smoothly. And
how often do they come?
Taught. Usually about once a year.
Oh, well, that's not too onerous, is it?
No, it's not.
Did you find it easy to get acceptance from the island people?
I think they're a little wary of you at the start, but they're mainly very hospitable people, and they'll give you a chance. So it didn't take that long.
This bleak headland, with its gale-force winds, in early summer is the nesting place for thousands of seabirds and is one of the most spectacular bird sanctuaries you could ever hope to find. But will a promised new car ferry and other suggested improvements flood this beautiful island with visitors? The islanders are surely right to be worried.
The strangers are the main thing. The strangers coming in and what they want. It's not what the island people wants anymore, it's what the stranger wants. In my opinion, they never know as much as the island people know. They would learn a lot from the island people if they would listen.
When the summer season is over, tours and all that's over, they do like to have the island a little while to themselves.
Well, I would like to see a few more people living on it. Since I came, the numbers have stayed about 100 to 108 people. I think when you've got a small community, you're inclined to be sort of living in each other's pockets, as it were.
These people coming in to tell us what's right and what's wrong, conservationists and all these other things.
I'll send a card to my wife and say, island, rough and tough, but the people, what shall I say, warm and friendly.
Very nice. Okay. Is that okay for you?
Ratlin Island, Ballycastle, but you're not Ballycastle, you're Ratlin Island.
Yes, but...
I'm sure one thing won't happen to your post office that happened to ours in London when they shut it down. We protested and protested, but we couldn't stop them shutting it.
No, well, we've only one here, so I don't think they'll shut that down.
Do you think this new ferry that's going to likely to come into being, this roll-on, roll-off ferry, is going to sort of bring more people here?
It would do, yes, I would say so.
And
anyone that doesn't like small boats would probably prefer the big ferry.
But if more people come here, I mean, they'll be looking for more facilities, won't they?
That's right, that's correct.
You think that's a good thing if you start changing the island? It looks more like the mainland?
Well, as I say, you have to come and go with the times, and I mean, I've seen changes here in this last 10, 15 years, so there probably will be more, and what can you do? You just have to go along with them, you know.
But do you? I mean, this is surely the whole point, that in an island like this you can make your own decisions about the kind of life you want to lead.
I don't know now. No? I don't think so, really.
We have actually a letter of objection from an islander about the roll-on roll-off ferry, and is it true it's going ahead? We don't know. We haven't been told an awful lot about it. It seems that there's discussions going on between the government and Caledonian McBrain without us knowing, and I think we have probably 100% on the island that we do not want visitors' cars coming in. I mean, presumably everybody's happy that we should complain about this.
I feel that heavy goods vehicles on the island would be a complete danger and hazard to the children.
The roads aren't safe. And one of the beauties of Rathlin, it's a hard place to live in, one of the beauties is the fact that our children are safe here.
At present, the profits from running a ferry are kept by people who are members of the island community. Is that right?
That's right, yes.
And if this new ferry is introduced, the profits will go elsewhere. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. And the independence will go elsewhere, because we tend to feel that when an island runs its own ferry service, it retains its independence, and when you take that away from it, to a certain extent, you take away its lifeblood.
So this is a step which is going to impoverish the island, in the guise of improving it.
The other side of that story is the ferrymen tell us, and I have no doubt, no reason to disbelieve them, they make nothing out of the boats. It costs them an enormous amount of money to keep those boats afloat. You know, something like £100 a week for insurance for each boat. That's just one overhead. So they're not actually making a living out of their boats. They're in a sense providing a service for the island. If they were employed by a larger ferry company, they would be paid a weekly or monthly wage. So in fact, they would be better off than they are now. Now that's what the ferrymen tell us.
I don't mind it, provided they put the right ferry on. We don't know as yet what type of ferry they're going to put on, you know, but if they put on a ferry that will suit the island, suit the people of the island, I'll have enough of it.
Won't you miss having your own little boat running like this between the mainland and the island?
Probably will, yeah, a little bit, but not, we'll miss it in the good weather, but not in the bad weather.
But what about the people on the island? Do you think they welcome the idea of cars being able to roll on and roll off the ferry?
I don't think that people will welcome a lot of cars coming in. I don't think it'll ever come to that.
You don't? How are you going to keep them off?
There's ways to do it, no, but let's discuss that now.
The islanders certainly know how to solve their own problems. Although they have no police, they have no crime either. For many, the biggest regret of island life is that when their children reach 11, they have to board for schooling on the mainland, coming home only at weekends.
My biggest drawback is the fact that the children have to leave home at such a very young age to go to secondary school. And I have to admit, I miss them terribly.
I mean, they need an education at secondary level because we are in that system and we have to give our children the same chances as children elsewhere. And another argument for them going away is that it is very idyllic here, and they need to spend a while growing up to know what the other side of the world's like. They need to know how everybody else lives, because really if they grew up here they wouldn't.
I'd like to see more improvement for the young on the island, you know, for teenagers. Well, there isn't any entertainment for them, there isn't anywhere for them to go when they come home at the weekends from secondary school.
There are problems living in a community like this. The problems sometimes cause friction. It's even in the middle of some of our greatest struggles or problems here over issues, and then you have a social event or you have something happens. I mean, everybody's there, and there you are at a ceilidh dancing with your adversary from last week. You know.
Any real community works together and plays together And of course it makes its own fun and games. This ceilidh was the high point of my visit. It was great to see people relating to each other and enjoying themselves.
I think it'd be the same in nearly any place you go. They're a bit cautious of the new priest when he comes for a while, and gradually a relationship develops. Once they find what kind of a person you are, and they get the tone off you, and they get a feeling they like you or they don't like you. And I must say I had no trouble at all when I came in. The people accepted me very well. I did the things that I felt needed to be done. I did the things that I thought was right to do, and didn't consult anybody, and it seemed to suit the people here. If I was running dances, if I was running sports, if I was running whatever, they all just came along in their own time. They liked what I was doing, so there were no problems there. Well, I will make the draw.
All right, Jim. It was Father McAteer who helped to revive this old island tradition of model yacht racing. Each is carved from a single piece of wood by its owner. To see people wading into the ice-cold water made me realize just how tough they are.
Now born he's away from his warring and fighting. He has gone to a place where naught can delight him. He may sit now and tell of the sights he has seen, oh, while forlorn he does mourn on the Isle of Saint Helena. No more in St. Cloud will he appear in great splendor, nor step forth from the crowd like the great Alexander. He may look to the east while he thinks.
The race today was won by Lochie McQuilkin. The cup was presented by Jim McFall and Catherine. Lochie, would you please step forward to receive the cup from Catherine McFall? Congratulations.
Thanks very much.
The second place was won by Seamus McMullen and his sister Marina.
It leaves the loneliness, it leaves an emptiness when you see all the children going on a Sunday.
Well, I think if there was a place of entertainment for the young ones, it would really, you know, they would encourage them to take their friends to the island.
I mean, they all go to school and they work hard and they generally actually do very well. But, I mean, they live for coming back, and they live for coming back to get involved in that life that they like so much, that life from their childhood and from their summer holidays.
At first, I'm sure they would rather stay on the island. But once they're away for a couple of years and have made friends and see how other people live on the mainland, I'm sure that they quite enjoy it. But they love to get back at the weekends.
You know, they all maintain they're not living anywhere else. What they'll do when they turn 18, I don't know. But so far, it looks like they all want to be. I just hope we can provide for them. I hope we can keep our culture and give them some kind of future as well.
Rathlin Island proves it is possible for a community to exercise some control over its life. Here in St John's Wood, with no consideration of local needs, an historic pub is left to rot. Useful amenities like our local post office are closed. Much-needed houses are boarded up, and useful cross-London bus routes are terminated halfway. Big Brother marches roughshod over us. These thoughts have led to the formation of a local residents' association, the reawakening of a grassroots democracy even here in the big city. And also, in response to local demand, there are bobbies on the beach.
Hello, Sarge.
Hello, how are you?
How are
We
you?
must
Not
have
too bad.
faith. It can be done. Only have courage. On the courage in your heart, all things depend. It is the courage of life alone that keeps sky and earth apart. If that courage fail, if that sacred fire go out, then all things fail and all things go out, leaving nothing.
On the long road down to the South Sea, and in Kilkenny it is reported on marble stones as black as ink.